What is holding you back in life? A lot of us make the mistaken assumption that it's time. We think that only if we had a little more time, we could get all kinds of things done. If we had a little more time, the house would be cleaner. We'd spend more time with our family and friends, and we'd be able to progress faster through our career. Or maybe we could start a new training program as well and finally get those abs. But there just isn't enough time in the day. We work from 9 to 5, and when we get home, we often still have a long list of tasks to do that we just don't have time to finish. And that includes checking the mail, paying bills, making dinner, washing up, and hopefully getting just a little bit of time to spend with the family. Man, if there was only more time, right? Well, actually, time is very often not the problem. Rather, the problem comes down to energy. Think about it. If you really don't have any time to do anything, then how are you able to watch that entire box set of Game of Thrones recently? If you really don't have time to do anything, then how come you've been finding time to play Uncharted? If you genuinely work and busy yourself from first thing in the morning all the way up until bedtime, then the answer would be simple. Get up earlier or go to bed later. No, that is not the problem. Instead, the problem is energy. Time management isn't the only big deal here. Energy management is just as important. If you can't effectively manage your energy, then you're going to find that you can't make full use of your time, and that is a problem. What probably really happens when you get home from work is that you collapse onto the sofa and watch TV for a bit. Or maybe you just procrastinate a little by not really doing anything much for a short time. Either way, you could be working. You could be working on that amazing novel. The issue is not your time at all, but rather it is your energy. And this isn't to say that you're in some way lazy or that you could be making better use of your time right now. Instead, it is to say that you're simply pushing yourself too hard and too far, and it should come as no surprise that you're not achieving as much as you hope as a result. Energy is something that most of us ignore. I have a few hours tonight, we say. I'll do it then. The only problem is that if you don't have the energy, then you're not going to do it. Your energy is finite. It can only go so far. And if you ignore that fact, then you're going to run out of steam and not accomplish the things you want to change. There's a good chance you may be watching this and considering energy management properly for the very first time. Perhaps it's something that you never really thought about before, and you wouldn't be alone in that. But even at this early stage in the series, you've hopefully learned a valuable lesson. Simply acknowledging that energy is probably what's holding you back is one of the very best things that you can do to start making life easier. Once you come to terms with this, you can start to think more logically and realistically about what you can achieve in a day. This means you can remove items from your agenda knowing full well that you won't be able to accomplish them, and thus actually get more done as a result and come home with more energy left over. When thinking about whether you're going to walk home tonight or drive, be realistic and accept that driving may be easier. When planning to complete a long list of chores this evening, be honest with yourself and ask how likely you are to accomplish that complete list. Did you manage to finish everything you set out to do last time? Give yourself a break and organize your day sensibly. So, what is our overall strategy for boosting energy? It actually comes down to a few things. The first is management. Managing our time better and thinking about how much energy we'd like to have in a given day and what we actually want to do with it. And by finding ways to avoid wasting energy, we can save more for the things that we ultimately decide really matter. The next step is to start small and not to be too ambitious. That's true with the other things we're trying to achieve, and it's also true of the lifestyle changes we're introducing in this video series. Simply put, you're not going to transform your energy levels and your health overnight, and you shouldn't try. Work up to it slowly and be smart about how you're raising your energy. We're going to introduce the concept of Kaizen here, which means that we're introducing small changes with the aim of eventually seeing big results. Kaizen is a Japanese concept that basically means any journey is best accomplished with lots of little steps. And finally, we're going to change everything. We're going to look at our health and our lifestyles holistically. We're going to acknowledge that to boost energy, it's not good enough that we simply introduce one new lifestyle habit or start drinking smoothies. We need to rethink everything. These videos will be your guide, and by the end, the aim is for you to be crackling with energy. You should feel like a coiled spring ready to explode. And then you can achieve some truly amazing things. At the end of the last video, we mentioned that we had to change everything. Now, that's a pretty tall order, but using the aforementioned Kaizen approach, we should see it's relatively possible to gradually introduce change that starts small and eventually becomes all-encompassing. But before we go on, perhaps I should explain what I mean by change everything. Why do you need to change everything if all you want to do is get a little more energy? Let's take a look at one example and use that as a microcosmic example of why it doesn't work to try and change one aspect of your health and lifestyle in a vacuum. If you're like an awful lot of people, then at some point you've probably tried to get into better shape. That might mean you joined a gym, or perhaps you paid for a training program to get ridden for you. And if you're like an awful lot of people, you may have failed to stick at the training program or to see the results you wanted. Now, why is that? Probably it comes down to the simple fact that the training program was too ambitious. Very often, a training program will involve working out 3, 4, or 5 times a week at a gym. As a standard rule, workouts will be somewhere between 40 to 60 minutes. So that's immediately 4 to 5 hours of extra time that you need to take away from your current working week. Then there's the fact that you need to travel to and from the gym. And this can take anything from 10 minutes each way to 30 minutes. Then there's showering, and then there's the amount of extra washing you create and the fact that you need to pack for the gym. So what you're really doing is taking about 10 hours out of your working week. That's huge. And more to the point, these are 10 exhausting hours. And that's before we've even considered the amount of work we're expected to do in the kitchen. We're supposed to be transforming our diets to be low calorie, meaning low energy, and we're supposed to shop for the food, cook the food, wash up afterwards. You know how it goes. And it's all stressful too. Cooking can be stressful, and so can spending all that extra money on the gym, the food, on the gas. It's just too much. Then there's a good chance that the very reason you're not exercising and getting enough activity right now is because you're too tired half the time. This is why so many of us let ourselves get into bad shape to begin with, and it's why we turn to junk food, and it's why we struggle to stick to new goals. In short, we're already doing as much as we can. So again, the problem here is energy. Energy management is more important than time management by far when it comes to exercise, so you really need to focus on getting more of that. So next, let's look at what's sapping energy in your life. For many of us, diet comes into play here, and eating lots of junk food can certainly prevent us from feeling our very best and healthiest, so that needs to be changed. More important though is work. If you're coming home from work stressed, then you're going to have very little energy for throwing yourself into a workout. Likewise, stress from other sources such as your finances or relationships can also have a negative impact on your ability to train, so you need to fix that too. There are practical considerations too, like finances. As I was saying, staying in shape can be expensive, and like space if you're training at home, which is a good shout for most people. Even if you're not training from home, having a tidy flat stroke house to come home to can make all the difference in terms of your energy and how you feel. And it means you have one less thing to do at the end of the day, tidying up in this case. Likewise, looking good will fill you with energy and confidence too, which will translate into a better mood and more energy to attack the workouts. A lot of energy is linked with mood, as we'll see later. Then, of course, those other things come into play: time, motivation, and the right program. The point I'm making is that picking a training program and pledging to stick at it just doesn't work unless you're also looking at what has been holding you back so far. Right now, you probably fill your time with activity as much as you can and then crash on the sofa because you're out of steam. If you had the energy to work out, you'd already be working out. You're not, because you don't. So don't come up with an unrealistic 5-day workout plan until you've looked at the rest of your life, including your physical energy, happiness, and mental discipline. You have to change everything if you want to get into great shape. And as you'll see, this makes changes in the rest of your life. Working out will give you more energy. And when you get more energy, you'll find you start to perform better at work. This will be helped by the fact that you now look and feel more confident and attractive filling out that suit or pencil skirt with a more toned physique. Working less means you have more energy to train. Training means you have more energy to do better at work. And these kinds of two-way relationships exist throughout your entire lifestyle. Your lifestyle is self-sustaining, and everything you do is supporting that lifestyle and making it harder for you to change. So, where can you possibly start? As mentioned, one of the key things to think about is energy management and planning. Just knowing that you have a finite amount of energy throughout the day and making decisions on that basis. And this brings us to our first super important tip. If you're going to introduce something big into your life, then you need to remove something else. This sounds like a big deal, and many of us will be resistant to it at first, but it's also true. If you're going to try and exert yourself for 30 minutes after work every day, then you need to find a way to save 30 minutes of both time and energy. Getting up 30 minutes earlier will give you more time, but perhaps going to bed 1 hour earlier the night before can give you some more of the energy. Or perhaps you just make the decision to save energy by going out a little less. If you have a weekly pub trip, then consider cutting that out, especially as alcohol will sap your energy in the long term. If you have a very busy social calendar, perhaps consider seeing one friend less. Now, that sounds harsh, but life is all about making tough decisions. Or maybe you'd rather cut out one of your more tiring hobbies or extracurricular activities. Again, it's hard and it seems cold, but the simple fact of the matter is that every action needs an equal and opposite reaction. You can't pull extra time out of thin air. But that's what's going to bring us to our next video and a somewhat more appealing sounding alternative. Finding lots of little ways to save more time and energy throughout the day. This is where the concept of Kaizen comes in. If you can save a little energy on the way to work, save a little energy in the morning, save a little energy doing the dishes, well, you might just have a bit more to spend doing the things you love and the things that are important to you. In order to spend more time doing the things you love and engaging in activities that will actually boost your energy further, you need to find ways to save time throughout the day. That way, you can introduce new things to your routine without feeling like you're being pushed too far. This will also help you to recharge and relax by having some time to spare, which will ultimately help you to be even more focused, productive, and creative at work. The first step is to get things tidy. Believe it or not, tidying your home makes a massive difference to your energy levels, your confidence, and therefore your ability to stick at your training. Think of your home as an extension of your state of mind. If you're very stressed, your home is more likely to look a mess. If your home is a mess, you'll be more stressed. So, what's the easiest way to keep your home tidier and give yourself more mental clarity and space? Actually, it is to get ruthless and just throw things out. Got a box of junk on the wardrobe you haven't looked at in a year? Well, get rid of it. Got 20 ornaments on every surface? Throw out half of them, at least. Now, this may sound extreme, but simply having more space, even just seeing out of the corner of your eye that there's space under the bed, can make a huge difference to your state of mind, and the lack of clutter makes it easier for your mind and body to unwind. Clutter and mess literally cause you to produce norepinephrine, cortisol, and other stress hormones. So, this can end up with you feeling completely spent unless you can do something about it. This is particularly useful when you consider that it will also make tidying up much easier in future. Now, you'll be able to clean surfaces by wiping with a wet cloth without having to remove lots of items from around your home. Finding things will be easier, and generally, you'll have more time and energy as a result. Oh, and when you remove 50% of your ornaments, you'll be left with a much higher average quality of things on display. This actually makes your home look much wealthier and more impressive because there's no longer the less impressive stuff to detract from the truly great stuff. Now, most of us will do at least one, probably two big shops every week. This involves driving to the supermarket, walking around the aisles, loading up our trolleys, wrestling with other customers, and then loading up our bags and carrying them to the car. That's a heck of a lot of effort. Not to mention the fact that when you shop like this, you have no idea of the budget or the precise amount you're spending. If you want to perform optimally at work the next day, then spending your evenings hunting around supermarkets with screaming kids is not the way to do it. And so it actually makes a lot more sense to shop online. Set up a selection of items that you want to buy, and you can even do this on your lunch break, and then have them delivered each week with a few variations to keep your meals interesting. You just saved yourself 1 to 3 hours a week, and those hours would have involved a lot of exertion. That's enough time to work on a book. Okay, back to the cleaning and tidying. Because even with a very well organized home and minimal clutter, you're still going to find yourself needing to clean from time to time, meaning you're not either relaxing and recuperating or doing the things that you enjoy. But many of these types of work can be avoided or at least minimized too. For example, you could take away the need to wash up after eating by simply getting a dishwasher. Sick of spending lots of time vacuuming? Then how about getting a robotic vacuum cleaner? Ironing taking too long? Then how about getting a steam press? If you want to go even further, then you could consider ordering ready-made meal deliveries to come to your door, as long as they adhere to the diet recommendations that we're going to go into later. And you could look into getting a cleaner to help you keep your home in top shape. In short, there's really no reason to spend your hard-earned time and energy sweeping the floor and cooking. It might seem lazy, but it really isn't if you're using that time to do other fun and useful things. Do you think Obama spends his time washing dishes? Although he probably has more time to do them now. Or Richard Branson? Or Bill Gates? Or Theresa May? Do you think they'd have time to run their empires if they did? Do you think they'd have the energy? Stretching is something I never used to bother with until I heard someone point out how much younger it made them feel once they got their flexibility back. And it makes sense. If you come home from work covered in aches and pains, then of course you're not going to be brimming with energy. And most of us lead lifestyles that make us all more stiff and achy. If you spend a huge amount of your time sitting at a desk, then this is going to do nothing short of destroying your health. Sitting for long stretches is terrible for your heart, because you're not using it basically, while it also causes certain muscles to shorten and tighten, while others elongate and become weaker. Among other things, this can risk causing an anterior pelvic tilt, where your pelvis is actually pulled forward at the front, making your buttocks protrude and hurting your back. Doing everything is harder if this is the state you're moving around in. Don't start your workouts with stretches though. Contrary to what you may have been taught in gym class, stretching actually increases your risk of injury rather than decreasing it. One of the most tiring parts of the day for so many of us is the commute, and there are countless reasons for this. Not only does commuting often mean you need to get up an hour or more before you would otherwise have to, but it also means you need to push yourself onto a crowded bus or train with lots of other people or sit in a traffic jam cursing. Then you do the whole thing in reverse on the way home. When you've just spent a whole day being shouted at or dealing with work responsibilities, this can be too much for us to handle sometimes. There are plenty of solutions though. One is to look into flexi time. Ask your boss if you can come in an hour earlier and leave an hour earlier. It may mean you miss the rush hour and it shouldn't hurt your productivity. It also means you'll have an extra hour or so to yourself at the start of the day where you can be much more productive. Another option is to consider a carpool. This way, you can get a lift into work every other day, making life easier for you. The stress is now split in half, at least, as is the cost of fuel. And if there's nothing else you can do, then think about the ways you can make your journey to work a little more relaxing and a little less stressful. This might mean reading a great book with the headphones and some good music, or it might mean napping to get even more energy in. Forget smart drugs. The single best way to enhance your cognitive powers and become more focused is to get more sleep. And forget supplements. The single best way to accelerate your muscle gains and improve your strength is to get more sleep. There are countless articles out there that detail life hacks and other strategies that you can use to sleep better. These range between lying on spiky mats, which is nonsense, taking ZMA, which doesn't do much, to eating honey before bed, which might just be helpful but frankly is negligible. More efficient then is to look at some small, simple changes you can make to your routine that will have a major impact on the quality and quantity of your sleep. There's that Kaizen again. Okay, number one, take a hot shower or bath before bed. This helps to encourage the production of growth hormone and melatonin, and it also helps to relax the muscles, far more effectively than taking valerian root. As your body cools down, you'll sink into a much deeper and more restorative sleep, and you'll also save yourself time in the morning. Number two, open the window ajar. We sleep much better when our environment is slightly cool. Let some cool air into your room, but make sure you can keep warm with your duvet. Number three, go for a run or a walk in the morning that day. Getting more exercise helps you to sleep more, as does getting fresh air and vitamin D. You can also supplement with vitamin D in the morning, and if you live in the UK like me, then there's a good chance you're deficient. Number four, take half an hour or even 15 minutes before bed to wind down and do some reading. Avoid looking at mobile screens or computers if possible, as the light from these increases cortisol production. I experimented with wearing blue blocking shades before bed for a while, but truth be told, you look like a twit and it's pretty impractical, especially if you're in a relationship. Taking a little while out to unwind will help you forget the stresses of the day while getting your body into a good sleep mode. Number five, most important of all, is simply to prioritize your sleep and to give it the attention it deserves. Stop watching YouTube videos until 2 a.m. in the morning and start getting into a routine. And finally, number six. Of course, you also need to look after the environment that you're sleeping in. Comfortable pajamas and duvet covers, along with curtains that actually block out the light and an absence of blinking LEDs, will make a huge difference. Meanwhile, I highly recommend investing in some kind of daylight alarm, such as those made by Lumi. These are designed to emit a light that is more similar to sunlight in terms of the wavelength, and it will come on gradually as it approaches the time that you set the alarm. This gradually rouses you out of sleep, and, if all goes well, you'll wake naturally before the alarm goes off. As a result, you'll feel significantly more awake and well rested. Even if it takes the alarm to wake you, though, you'll still be waking up in a light environment from a much lighter state of sleep. You'll feel far less sleep inertia and you'll really notice the difference when you're forced to wake up without it. This is especially effective for those who struggle with SAD, which is seasonally affective disorder, or SAD. And trust me, this is one change that will really make a highly noticeable difference. Just think about the difference you're now making. Previously, you were sleeping deeply, at which point a loud alarm would suddenly startle you awake. This would jolt you out of bed with a start, and you'd wake up into a pitch black room and have to drag yourself out of bed. Instead, you're now coming round gently, waking up gradually and naturally as the room gets lighter, and then being nudged over the edge by the actual alarm. And when you open your eyes, the room is light and you're ready to go. For those of you who struggle to get out of bed without hitting the snooze button, a daylight alarm can help. If you need a little extra help, then try waking up in stages. Instead of forcing yourself to leap out of bed, agree that you'll just prop yourself up into a more upright position and turn on the light when the alarm sounds. If you must hit the snooze, then that's fine once, but the second time it goes off, then you're going to grab a book, your phone, or something else that will prevent you from dozing off. Absent-mindedly look through this. Then you should find that you're awake enough to get up. Getting up slowly is not only healthier, it's much easier to do when you're feeling low on willpower. If you find you still can't wake up effectively in the morning, then it may be that you're struggling with a number of potential issues. If you have a scratchy throat or you feel ill, then here are some possible causes and solutions. The first is an allergy. You can develop hay fever at any age, and symptoms that are unnoticeable during the day can be much worse during the night when you've been breathing in dander or pollen all night. Unfortunately, most antihistamines will leave you feeling groggy too, so you'll need to find another way to clean your environment. Mold poisoning can lead to a number of unpleasant short-term and long-term effects. If you have mycotoxin-producing black mold, it can even give you asthma or eczema. Even just breathing in mold spores from less harmful types can leave you with a scratchy throat and a poor night's sleep. If you notice the air is smelling damp, then consider calling in a mold remediation company. Then it could be behind the walls or under the floorboards. Then there's dehydration. It's common to get dehydrated during the night, so make sure you drink enough before you fall asleep and have some water to hand. If you struggle with this one, you may want to consider trying chia seeds, which absorb several times their mass worth of water. And finally, you might have low blood sugar. Breakfast is so named because you're breaking your fast. As you can imagine, going 10 hours without eating can leave you a little groggy, so it's possible you're struggling with low blood sugar. Something that is thought to help this is a spoon of honey, which contains both slow-release and fast-release sugar, providing you with a steady supply of energy throughout the night. This might seem a bit of a random tangent, but it really isn't. Many of us wake up in the morning feeling subpar, but aren't quite sure why. Often it comes down to factors in the environment or in your overall health like these, and as we've seen, it should be relatively easy to solve them in many cases. Finally, if you struggle getting to sleep because you can't stop your mind racing, then address the way you're thinking about sleep. There's a lot more to learn about CBT, and it really is a fantastic tool. But for now, all you need to know is that it involves changing the way you think about a problem. In this case, you're going to stop putting pressure on yourself to sleep. If you feel stressed because you're not asleep yet, you'll work yourself up and be far less likely to be able to drift off. Instead of getting frustrated, focus on the opportunity to just relax and enjoy lying down to have a think or feel free from the pressures of the day. Even if you're just relaxing, this will still offer you some recuperative benefit. What you'll find, though, is that the moment you manage to enjoy just relaxing, you'll fall asleep. Don't force yourself to drift off. That's an oxymoron. Just get comfortable, enjoy the moment, and let your body take care of the rest when you really need to drift off. Our energy levels come in ebbs and flows, and we're all beholden to this natural cycle. At certain points during the day, you'll feel energetic, and at others, you'll feel listless and exhausted. Instead of trying to force your body to be energetic when you need it to be and tired when you want to go to bed, try choosing your activities based on how you feel. This is the idea of riding the tide. Again, it's about acknowledging that there is a limit to how much energy you can utilize in any given day and planning your activities out smartly as a result of that. In this video, we're going to look at the energy cycles that your body goes through in any given day. We'll explore what causes those energy cycles, and we'll look at how you can actually influence them in order to help them align more usefully with the activities that you need to commit yourself to. Let's start by addressing why your body goes through energy cycles in the first place. And the answer comes down to evolution and survival. We have adapted to function this way because it helps us to survive in a dangerous environment and to manage energy levels in the wild. The only problem is that we're no longer in the wild and now need energy levels at different times. Ultimately, these energy systems work by splitting us into two states. These are anabolic and catabolic. An anabolic state is also referred to as rest and digest. This is when we're relaxed, when we're happy, and when we're able to just switch off and chill. During this time, the body has plenty of fuel, energy, and it's able to spend that fuel where it's needed to help us repair muscle, lay down memories, and restore ourselves during sleep. Conversely, a catabolic state is also referred to as fight or flight. This is when we're either in danger or we're starving. Either our blood sugar is low or we're being faced by a predator or a threat. Either way, the reality is that our bodies need to act in order to keep us alive, and thus we start burning fat and even muscle to provide fuel. Of course, you're not always asleep or scared for your life, but you are always teetering slightly more to one of those extremes or the other. When you wake up in the morning, your blood sugar levels are low, and this is what causes you to wake up. You've been fasting, and your body is now running on empty, which triggers the release of stress hormones like cortisol. When you've just eaten, your body receives the signal that it's satisfied and that the blood is filled with sugar. Thus, it releases insulin to extract that sugar, and it releases serotonin, which makes you feel good. That serotonin eventually converts to melatonin, the sleep hormone, and the body is able to rest and use all that good stuff to help repair our bodies. This cycle of anabolic stroke catabolic stop stroke go continues throughout the day. It's also closely linked with our circadian rhythm, which is our sleep-wake cycle. Psychologists have studied our circadian rhythms extensively, and what they've discovered is that they are determined by two main factors: external Zeitgebers, which is time givers, and internal pacemakers. In short, we listen to the cues from our body as well as the cues from the world around us, like the amount of light and social cues. That's why the daylight lamp I mentioned in the last video is so valuable. The light stimulates the release of cortisol and nitric oxide, both of which help the brain to wake up. It's also why it's so important that we get a few minutes to let our bodies cool down in the evening without unnatural light. Having a vitamin D supplement also helps. Our bodies produce vitamin D when they receive direct sunlight. Another factor that contributes to us needing to sleep is the build-up of two substances in the brain: adenosine and pro-inflammatory cytokines. Adenosine is the main byproduct of the brain's energy process. That is to say, when your brain cells are working, they're constantly creating adenosine as well. The harder you think and the more active you are, the more adenosine builds up. And as it builds up, it suppresses activity, making it harder for us to concentrate and contributing to brain fog. Eventually, this becomes too much and we need to sleep to clear it. Meanwhile, pro-inflammatory cytokines cause brain inflammation. These two build up as a result of our immune system working overtime, and they're highest in number when we feel sick. This is why we feel tired, groggy, and full of brain fog when we're ill, which is partly our body's way of telling us to hit the hay. This means there are points in the day when we will feel our most awake and points when we feel our most asleep. Most of us will experience a serious crash around 4 a.m. and 4 p.m. We sleep deepest at 4 a.m. and we struggle to focus on work at 4 p.m. 4 p.m. is the ideal time to schedule a break. Better yet, if you can move your working day forward an hour, then you can come home at the point when you're feeling most tired. While it's a good idea to fit your work schedule around your energy, it would of course be slightly more convenient if you could fit your energy around your work schedule. Fortunately, there are some things you can do to alter your rhythms and to help yourself feel more energetic right when you need to. One simple way to do this is to think about when and how you're going to eat. Remember, when we eat, it stimulates the sudden release of sugar into the blood, which can result in us feeling very tired and lethargic immediately afterwards. This is great an hour or so before bed, giving you time to digest, but it's not so useful if you are planning on being useful that evening. A simple example of this is what happens when you sit down to eat dinner in the evening. Any hopes you might have had of being productive at this point are practically thrown out the window. So instead, if you wanted to tidy the house, try doing it before you eat, while your body is still flooding you full of wakefulness hormones. Another way to control your energy levels through your diet is to think about what you want to eat. A big mistake is to eat simple carbohydrates, which are things like cake, bread, and white pasta. These release sugar quickly into the bloodstream, which results in a sudden energy high. However, as we now know, that will be followed by a sudden crash when the sugar is taken up and the brain releases melatonin to put you in a restorative mode. The solution is to try and keep your blood sugar at a slightly more stable and level point throughout the day. In theory, this should provide you with a steady flow of energy while at the same time avoiding sugar crashes or sudden spikes in energy. To do this, you can focus on getting more energy both from complex carbohydrates. Now, carbohydrates that are slower to digest normally include things like more fiber and fat, as well as fats, which also digest slowly in the gut. Both of these methods will provide a constant level of energy as you go throughout your day and may also have other health benefits, potentially reducing inflammation. We'll discuss this more in the diet section of the video series. Changing the order of your food, even just by shifting everything forward an hour, can help to change the order and length of your cycles. In fact, when traveling abroad to different time zones, many people will utilize a system of changing their diet in order to readjust their circadian rhythms and body clocks. Another tip is to consider taking power naps. This is something that some people have a lot of success with, but there is a trick to it which will once again involve thinking in terms of cycles. This main objective is to avoid waking up during a sleep cycle. Sleep cycles tend to last about 90 minutes, but it takes 20 minutes to enter the first heavy stage of sleep. Sleeping for just 10 minutes can be a great way to get a quick energy boost, while sleeping for 90 minutes should provide a deeper sleep while helping you to avoid waking up during SWS, that's slow wave sleep, and experiencing high levels of sleep inertia as a result. The key thing to take away from this is that you need to consider the role of your body in your energy levels. What you eat, what time you sleep, and even the light outside can all affect your energy levels and your mood. Even the temperature can have a huge impact. If you're in a cold room, this will increase your production of adrenaline and norepinephrine, thereby making you feel more alert. Conversely, if you're in a warm space, you'll feel more relaxed and sleepy and may find it harder to stay awake. Note that we are actually more creative when we're relaxed. This allows our mind to wander, and it's when the mind wanders that it's able to form novel connections between concepts, thereby creating entirely new ideas. You can even split your work into ebbs and flows this way, dividing it between periods of creativity where you come up with new ideas and directions, and periods of productivity where you go full steam ahead to work as hard as possible. Which, of course, is a simple way of saying you need to take breaks. All that talk about rhythms, routines, and such like that we covered in the last video brings us nicely to the topic of stress, which is another crucial element of our wake sleep cycle and our energy. Remember, stress is what triggers the fight or flight response. Stress is the response to a perceived threat and or to low blood sugar. It's worth noting this right away because if you're feeling hungry and you have a deadline, then you're going to be more stressed out than you would be if you were trying to tackle the same issue while you were asleep. A little stress is a good thing. A little stress is what we call eustress, and this is what motivates us to focus and to be productive. Moreover, a little stress helps us stay awake and alert and to focus on whatever it is that we're doing. The problem is when we have too much stress or when this stress lasts too long. Remember, we're supposed to go through cycles where we switch between awake and alert and relaxed and calm. So, what do you think happens if you're highly awake and alert for 8 hours straight without a break? That's right, you come home and absolutely collapse in a heap because you're 100% spent. And there is a good physiological reason for this too. When you exert yourself, you see, you're producing hormones that keep your energy levels high. These include adrenaline and norepinephrine, which keep your heart beating faster and help you to concentrate and focus. The problem is there's only so much of these neurochemicals that we can produce. Eventually we run out, which causes something called adrenal fatigue. In this state, we will experience incredibly low energy, low mood, and low motivation. Ask yourself, what's the single most tiring part of your day? It's probably work. And this is because you have been producing these go, go, go hormones for 8 hours straight, which is entirely unnatural. That much focus, meanwhile, increases the amount of adenosine and the amount of cytokines. Worse still is that your body is actually not working at all, meaning that you're going to be feeling that exhausted and spent despite not having had any useful exercise. What's more is that being constantly on throughout the day is a good way to cause health problems. These cycles are here for a reason. When you eat and then go straight back to work, the large amount of stress will actually suppress your digestion. Remember, stress in the wild was often associated with danger, and we don't want to be digesting when we're meant to be running. Meanwhile, your immune system is also suppressed, which is why you're much more likely to become ill. And remember what we said in the last video about creativity. Well, stress is actually the mortal enemy of creativity. In fact, stress actually causes the prefrontal cortex, the smarter and creative part of our brain, to shut down entirely. This leads to mistakes, and it means you're not going to be performing your best at all. If you allow this to go on long enough, the worst case scenario is that it leads to depression and or serious illness. The best case scenario is that you'll spend your evening staring blankly into space with no willpower, motivation, or energy to do anything. So, what can you do to prevent stress from robbing you of your energy? Well, the first key is to make sure you're taking time out, and that you make this a mental break as well as a physical one. In other words, actually take a break from thinking about work and instead try reading or perhaps going for a nice quiet stroll. Either way, you should focus on thinking about anything other than work. An even better idea is to practice some stress management techniques. CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, is a great method to this end, as is meditation. Either way, if you can go through your working day and remain calm and relatively unfazed, even when everything seems to be going wrong, You'll find that the entire day seems much less tiring as a result, and that you arrive home with far more energy to spend being productive or just having fun. It also means you'll have more energy at work the next day to be even more productive. And finally, if work is repeatedly taking it all out of you and you aren't able to find the way to get the balance right, you should quit. Again, this sounds extreme, but if your work is that tiring or that stressful, then it will only continue to undermine your enjoyment of other activities and to take a toll on your health. Your health and happiness should always come first, and there's no reason that anyone ever has to stay stuck in a job that is placing so much strain on them. What is the role of exercise in all of this? Well, it's pretty much crucial to the crux of all this activity. The very best way to enhance your energy levels by far is to start becoming more active and to exercise. This will give you a boost in just about every domain. The first reason for this is that exercise will help you to enhance your cellular efficiency. Inside each of your cells are tiny little energy factories called mitochondria. These are what take the energy, glucose, from your food and convert it into something that can be used, ATP. They're also what break that ATP down to release the energy that drives muscle contractions, deep thought, and breathing. As we get older, the number of mitochondria in our system actually depletes, but when you're a young kid, you have loads of them and they're functioning much more efficiently. So, if you ever wondered why all Grandpa does is sleep while little Timmy rushes around the house all day on a sugar high, that would be why. But when you exercise, you boost the function and number of your mitochondria. This doesn't just help you to perform better in athletic activities, it also helps you to think better and to wake up more alert so that you can get more done. That's only one way in which exercise will boost your productivity. Another powerful effect comes from improved cardio fitness, circulation, and blood pressure. In short, using your heart a lot will make you better at pumping blood around your body and provide you with oxygen, nutrients, etc. The best form of exercise for this benefit is steady state cardio. Running long distance gives your heart's left ventricle time to enlarge, and that means you can pump more blood around more easily. But any form of exercise will help you increase your VO2 max, your resting heart rate, and your energy levels. Exercise is also super good for your brain and will encourage more brain plasticity, improving your sleep. Getting rid of fat will make you lighter, meaning you spend less energy moving around. In short, if you can exercise, you will perform much better than ever before. The only problem? If you're currently not exercising at all, then you'll find it hard to start, which is why I'm happy to introduce the quick routine to solve that problem. The most important thing to start with is a simple training program that you can just stick at. This is where all those self-help books and online training programs have gotten things a bit twisted. It's very misguided when you see the people who walk around the gym with elaborate training programs and queuing for machines before they've even developed a basic level of fitness. It's even more misguided when people tell themselves that they haven't started working out yet because they need to, quote, find the right training program. Want to lose weight? Then you might have taken a quick look online to find advice. Some people will be telling you to cut out your carbs. Others will be telling you to count calories and not worry about carbs. Others will tell you to eat more carbs and cut the fat. Meanwhile, do you do steady state cardio, in other words jogging, or do you try HIIT, high intensity interval training? It's all a lot to pick from. At this point, though, it really doesn't matter. All that matters is that you're doing something. If you aren't already training, then get training right now on a regular basis. Don't wait until you finish these videos. Don't focus on improving your health or getting abs, although we'll touch on that later. Just focus on getting good at training and actually sticking to a routine. Anything is better than nothing, and you don't need to worry about training wrong. Your body is incredibly adaptable. So here's a very simple training routine that you can use to start getting into shape. It's called the Quick Program, and it goes like this. First of all, do press ups, or push ups as some people call them, to failure, and keep going until you can't do any more. And remember the number and beat it next time. Then you're going to do pull ups to failure, and then kettlebell swings to failure. And use a weight that allows you to do about 30 to begin with. There's no pause in between each exercise, and you should treat this like a circuit. Ideally, you should aim to do 3 to 5 rounds with 1 minute's rest after the swings. But if you only have time to do one, well, that's okay. Remember, it's better to do something than nothing. If you have just 5 minutes at the end of each day, then just doing the press ups is fine. Perform the press ups fast and keep your body rigid as you do. Make sure you go all the way down and back up for each rep. Look for a pull-up bar that fits into a door frame without needing screws, and this will set you back about $10, and you can buy them online. If you don't have a kettlebell, you can buy them online for about $50. If that's still off the cards, you can replace the swings with jack-in-the-box reps. Here, you squat down, then explode up and splay your arms and legs apart. With all these, you're starting by going to failure and then aiming to increase or maintain that number each time you come to do the workout. So if you can do 30 press-ups right now, you'll be aiming to increase that to 31 tomorrow. In a year, you'll be maybe doing 70 or 100. Try to do this at least 4 times a week to see real results. This routine is the only necessary exercise because it offers some cardio benefit when practiced with intensity and because it offers resistance training for all the major muscle groups. The press-ups train the pecs, shoulders, triceps and core. The pull-ups train the lats, biceps and core, and the swings train the hamstrings, quads and lower back, the erector spinae. Overall, this is about as close to a full body routine as you're going to get in just 3 moves. But what really makes this routine effective is the simplicity. You can use it anywhere, you don't need much equipment, and it's completely flexible and adaptable. If you can only do 1 round, then that's fine. There's never really an excuse not to be able to do 5 minutes of exercise. The great thing is, though, once you've done 1 round, you'll probably find you have the energy and determination to complete 2 more. This is pretty much the workout I used when I took up bodybuilding aged 13. I didn't know what I was doing, but I just watched the film Exit Wounds and decided I was going to work out regularly from then on. And I've been doing so for 15 years. Had I started researching complicated training regimes, I probably would have gotten disheartened, but just by doing a workout that I enjoyed and that was simple, I was able to have a six-pack and biceps while I was still at high school. Very often, simple is best. All that said, though, the quick routine is designed very much for beginners and is not intended for those who want to build big muscle or crushing strength. If you're new to training, then starting out with something to improve your general fitness and muscle tone is very important. By the way, the quick program is also ideal for helping you get abs. Getting visible abs is mainly about diet, with the aim being to reduce your body fat percentage to sub 10%, thus making the six-pack visible underneath. This is aided through CV, and once you start doing kettlebell swings and press-up reps for 100, this will be quite a cardio-intensive routine. The other thing people seem to forget, though, is their transverse abdominis. This is the band of muscle around your midsection that acts to hold in your stomach and your internal organs, as well as to support your lower spine during lifts. Crucially, this is what makes your abs flat, and that in turn is what makes them look good. Press-ups require you to keep your whole body rigid, and this is a perfect way to ensure you're strengthening the transverse abdominis. So do the quick workout regularly and with intensity, and you should start to find your abs show. Hopefully, that will offer some motivation to some viewers. The last video may have got you thinking about using the quick workout for reasons other than boosting energy. This would be a mistake. Don't approach your training with the goal of trying to lose X amount of weight or gain X amount of muscle. Why? Because that's not completely within your control. If you give yourself such a defined set of goals, then you'll find things get in the way and you become frustrated as you realize you may fail. Instead, give yourself a simple and clearly defined goal that is completely within your control. For instance, do the quick workout 4 times a week. That's it, your only goal. This is something you will succeed or fail at, and you'll try to renew every week. If you do that long enough, you'll find that the bigger goals, like weight loss and muscle mass, take care of themselves. Focusing on long-term goals is also a bad idea because it leads to training that's much less enjoyable. Try to forget why you're going to the gym and just enjoy being there so that it's its own reward. When I'm really low on motivation, I just go and hit a heavy bag, which I love. A little tip: if you're feeling very low on energy and you can't get the motivation to hit the gym, then try watching something that motivates you. The Rocky 4 training montage tends to do the trick for me. This is called priming in psychology, and you can use the technique in other areas of your life too. Need to sit down to do some coding? Try watching a snippet of The Social Network or Iron Man and see if that puts you in your genius mode mentality. It sounds like a small matter, but when we feel driven to do something, it actually makes a big difference to our energy levels. This triggers a similar sort of neurochemical stroke hormonal response to eustress because you're telling your body and mind that what you're doing matters and is important. Remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing, and you can put yourself in that waking mode much more easily. When you want to give your car more energy, what do? You fill it with gas. And of course, it only stands to reason that you need to do the exact same thing when you're giving yourself more fuel. Well, not the exact same thing. You're not filling yourself with gas. But with fuel, yes. We've already seen that one of the most important ways to manage your energy levels is to think harder about your carbs and your timing with them. By consuming more complex carbs, like oats, and more fats, like avocado, you can provide yourself with a steady supply of energy throughout the day. But there's more to it than that, of course. What's also very important is simply to make sure that you're providing yourself with enough calories and that you're spacing your food out enough. This is crucial just to ensure that there's a steady supply of energy while you're going about your business. This is also why going extremely low carb may be a mistake. Studies show us that you actually see a reduction in IQ when you go too low carb. The simple reason is that there isn't enough energy for the brain to function optimally. So, food is fuel, but it's also much more than that. Food is also what provides your body with the raw materials it needs to help you function optimally. And when you function optimally, you have more energy. Nutrients are what the body uses to build muscle, but they're also what the body uses to create those mitochondria, energy factories, and to keep them operating at full capacity. They're also what the body uses to create hormones and neurotransmitters, like the ones that help us wake up in the mornings and the ones that help us rest. The worst thing you can do for your health and energy levels is to maintain a diet purely made up of processed carbs. Things like chocolate bars, crisps, pies, sausage rolls, these all have their goodness removed, and all that's left is a sudden hit of sugar. That causes the sugar spike and trough we talked about, but it also fills you up without providing your body with everything it needs. Honestly, packing your diet with nutrients is essentially like taking all the best bodybuilding supplements in a way that's cheaper and more effective. It boosts your brain power too. Don't spend tons of money on multivitamins and supplements. Just try to get a balanced, mixed diet. To demonstrate the importance of nutrients, Here are some examples of the things that nutrients do for you. Magnesium and zinc increase testosterone production. CoQ10 increases mitochondrial function. This is found in organ meats and beef. Creatine helps you run further and train longer by recycling ATP. Again, it's found in beef. Choline increases brain activity, and it's found in eggs. Saturated fat is used to create testosterone, and that's found in milk and eggs. Vitamin C boosts your mood via serotonin, and it strengthens the immune system. Omega-3 fatty acids, found in fish, increases cell membrane permeability, and it improves communication between cells. Vitamin B12 is used to manufacture neurotransmitters. Iron increases the ability to get oxygen around the body. Calcium strengthens muscle contractions. The list just goes on and on. But don't spend ages worrying about all this. Your body evolved to thrive off a balanced and rich diet, and if you just eat lots of stuff that you know is healthy, you'll supply your body with plenty of powerful agents to improve your brain power, strength, and more. Just eating more salads, more fruit smoothies, and more meats will help you to perform better in the long term. And in the short term, you'll sleep better, feel healthier, and enjoy more energy throughout the day. Hopefully, this video series has helped to convince you of the importance of energy and maintaining and managing it throughout the day. On top of that, though, you hopefully now have a more complete picture of precisely what dictates your energy levels and how that impacts on your ability to work, train, and enjoy life in your downtime. It comes down to management, to planning, and being smart about your routine. But it's also a matter of understanding the biology that dictates the way you feel and how you can subtly influence that to get the best from yourself. But now comes the hard part. Adapting that information to help you fit it in your own life and your own routine. It's worth it though. Get this right and you'll be far more productive at work, far happier at home, and much healthier.